Hello everyone, the video you're about to see is a live stream reaction to what the developers of Diablo IV have decided to change in the game following the community feedback they received from the early access and their open beta. Check it out, I hope you enjoy, and make sure to leave a like at the end. Do it now. We're going to be going over what the developers of Diablo IV have said about the game and what they learned from open beta and early access. I am excited and curious to know what they decided to change in the game following all the feedback they got from people. So, let's go through the article and find out, shall we? By the way, I am streaming, and if you're not following my Twitch, follow it, you sleazebags. Diablo 4 Open Beta Retrospective Transformation Feedback into Change. Now, please make note, I also may have some emote stuff popping up. I will turn that off right now so you guys don't get spammed by it. So the weekend of March 17th and 24th, Sanctuary let out a cry for help. A cry that would be answered by hordes of wanderers who rode into the Nameless Horse and loosened little grass of Sanctuary during the early access and open beta weekends. These players sent countless demons back into burning hell, obtained powerful gear, and saw Lilith's grand plot began to unfold before them. I will give credit where it's due here. The storyline in Diablo 4 actually was very good. Like, from beginning to end, like, it just, well, obviously for the first act, but it made sense, and there was a lot of lore, there's a lot of, just in general, a lot of good storytelling there, which was really, really good. Many of these players also took the time to leave valuable feedback on our official forums and on platforms such as Reddit and Discord. After the early access and open beta weekends concluded, the development team read through the feedback and reviewed gameplay data. Using the information, we made a variety of fixes and updates of various systems in Diablo 4, all of which will be present in the version of the game that launches June 6th. None of this would be possible without the community dedication and love for the Diablo universe, which we say thank you. So, changes. Dungeon layouts. One of the most common pieces of feedback we received is that players felt they were doing a lot of backtracking within certain dungeons. We have optimized multiple dungeons across all zones to minimize the need for backtracking. Here is a list of dungeons specifically in the Fractured Peak zone, which received layout updates. Calder's Gate, Defiled Catacombs, Derelict Lodge, Forbidden City, Hoarfrost Demise, Immortal Emanation, Core Dragon Barracks, Mallwood, and Rimscare Caverns. I didn't really have... For me, I didn't necessarily have a lot of problems with backtracking in dungeons, and one of the biggest reasons why is because the dungeons themselves weren't huge. So when you needed to backtrack, you really weren't taking a lot of time to be able to go back and do one little thing to progress forward in the dungeon. I didn't have a big issue with this one, but I can understand people having some issues with it. Our primary goal with the layout changes was to reduce certain kinds of backtracking which detract from the player's experience. An example of this change that players previously needed to enter side rooms to interact with structured objectives, causing them to retreat the same path. Now, many of our structured objectives have been repositioned along main dungeon pathways, making them easier for players to reach and allowing them to readily explore the dungeon after defeating the structure. Okay. Dungeon events. The chance for an event to spawn inside of a dungeon has increased from 10% to 60%. Really? That's a unusual one. Was there that much actual desire to have events spawning in dungeons? I got from time to time some events here and there, but it wasn't anything really drastic. And it did. For me I find this would take away from the dungeon in itself, but whatever. That's just how it is. Dungeon gameplay. To reduce the need to backtrack, small number of straggling monsters will seek out the player to help complete the kill all monster objective. When Animus is gathered, the player and nearby allies will gain 10 resource, reduce all active cooldowns by 1 second. So players nearby, so if you're far away, you won't gain this. Depositing Animus channel time will reduce from 3 to 0 seconds. Time to rescue was reduced from 3 to 1.5 seconds. All rescue objectives now drop a health potion upon completion. While carrying the ancient statue, bloodstone, mechanical box, or stone carvings, you will receive a momentum bonus granting a 25% move speed increase to you and nearby allies. Yeah, that was, whenever you carried these, it negated a little bit of your movement speed, so you kind of did slow down, so that's not bad. Pedestals have had their channel time reduced from 2 to 0 seconds. Reducing a portable object to its pedestal now fully restores health, resource potions, and resets cooldowns to all nearby players. All doors will now generate a mini-map ping when they are opened. All structural objectives in dungeons now have additional combat mechanics players must overcome. All structural objectives in dungeons now have additional combat mechanic players must overcome. Okay, so this is kill X amount of people, whatever. While dungeons offer a variety of objectives to complete, player feedbacks stated that the action of completing each objective felt tedious. We hope that providing bonuses such as the increase in mobility while carrying certain objective items will streamline and vary the experience in completing objectives. The adjustment is merely a starting point, and we intend to extend the philosophy to keys in the future update. Yeah, like you're still the thing with the momentum or the momentum bonus granted here while carrying that stuff is that it's just temporary though, because you're going from one end and putting it somewhere else. So once you do that, you lose that momentum bonus. You know what I mean? By the way, Monty, happy Kimo. But you lose that that momentum bonus. So it's not really. This isn't a main bonus. It's a temporary bonus, and I don't necessarily think it really merits a bonus just because you're carrying all of these from one end to another. Again, it's an objective, right? And you're carrying something heavy. So for me, it kind of made sense. I had an issue with the dungeons just because they felt that as if they were the same overlay again and again and again. And a lot of the tasks that I did felt pretty much copy and pasted from one to another. It ended up being one of these things whenever you did a dungeon in D4, obviously Act 1, and obviously I'm talking from a point of view where we just did one act, you know what I mean? Like there's multiple acts, there's multiple regions, we don't know how they're going to differ in those regions, we're just going based off of the one act. For me, it did feel a bit tedious over a period of time, where I felt doing these dungeons just didn't really give me the appeal. Once you got the aspect from the dungeon, you know, there was no real reason to go back unless you have one of the nightmare sigils, which then turns a dungeon into a nightmare dungeon, and then you get, you know, better loot, better gear, harder monsters, better reward. So, but the thing is, in Act 1, you didn't get that, right? Like, so in the end, it's one of these things where I get where they're coming through, but the biggest issue that they're getting is the backtracking and also the little benefits or boosts depending on like the mission you're doing. I still don't think this is a main change that's required for them. However, like I get it, but I don't know. My biggest thing was there wasn't much in the way of differentials in the dungeons to truly make them feel special every time you did them. And I'm not asking to be completely different, but if these dungeons are procedurally generated, I'd like there to be some type of change associated to it, not just kind of similar aspects from one dungeon to another. But overall, okay, not a bad change. We'll see how that works. Biggest one, classes. Curious how this is going to go down. Effects like stun and freeze can be applied to elite monsters twice as long before they become unstoppable. Effects like stun and freeze can be applied to elite monsters twice as long before they become unstoppable. So pretty much you're adding an additional amplifier to this damage or this special effect until they become unstoppable, and that effect doesn't affect them anymore. Reviewing class skills to confirm that all classes have access to sufficient skills that remove control impairing effects. Many legendary powers have had updates to their effectiveness. Okay. So Barbarians. A flat 10% passive damage reduction has been added for the Barbarian class. Some skill tree passives have had their damage reduction effects reduced to compensate. The Whirlwind skill now deals more damage and consumes more fury. The Double Swing skill enhancements refunds all fury cost when used on stunned or knocked down enemies. Was there a big... So, unfortunately, we only had one experience with Barbarian. I didn't have too much experience when it came to the beta with Barbarian due to the fact that we did a hardcore and then we died early on. I know Barbarians have a tendency of starting slow. Over a period of time, they can definitely hit extremely hard. A flat 10% passive damage reduction has been added for the Barbarian class. Does that mean that regardless of where you're at, what level you are, you always have a 10% passive reduction, damage reduction? Some skill tree passive had their damage reduction effects reduced to compensate. So pretty much you have a nerf on your character, but some of your skills have a buff on them to negate that. So pretty much what they're doing is that they're downgrading the natural damage your character can do and pretty much upping what skills will add more damage to for your character. So I see, okay. Whirlwind skill now deals more damage and consumes more fury. I know Blinder loves that attack. Double Swing enhancement refunds its full fury cost when used on stunned or knocked down enemies. Okay. Druid. Just a complete redo. Companion skills will now deal heavily increased damage. Yes. I can't begin to explain to you how a werewolf feels like it doesn't hit like a fucking beast. All ultimate skills have had their cooldowns reduced. Usable improvements have been made to maul and pulverize. I think that was a very big one from a lot of people, specifically when they were playing the The werebear form or the werewolf form, oh my god. Pulverize is not bad. Maul, I know, had a massive issue. Like, a lot of people felt it was extremely under-powerful. Using a non-shapeshifting skill will transform a druid back into their human form. Okay, wasn't they doing that before? Necromancers pretty much fucking nerf the whole shit. Summon minions will die more often, requiring players to utilize corpse more often. Yes, so the minions never died. Like, I'll be sincere with you, the minions, when you summon them, they fucking never died. So, have them die more frequently is a little bit more, it gives you more reason to use the actual corpses. To be fair though, if the biggest thing is that when they didn't die, you used corpse explosion, and that motherfucking thing just cleared the goddamn floor. Many bonuses in the Book of the Dead have had their stats increased, okay? The damage dealt by the corpse explosion skill has been reduced. Yes, I understand why. The brightness of the skeleton warriors and mages have been reduced. The brightness? I didn't realize there was an issue with brightness. Rogue upgrades for subterfuge skills have had their bonuses increased. Multiple passive skills have had their bonuses increase. All imbuement skills have had their cooldowns increased. The imbuement skills obviously is the poison, fire, the I think it was darkness imbuements. They did add quite a bit of damage amplifiers on your skills, which is actually really good. So their cooldowns have been reduced. Subterfuge skills. Is this where Flurry was? I can't remember if this was a subterfuge or no, or if that was a core skill. No, core skill was the throwing skill that I had. I can't remember what that one was either. Fuck, I'm bad with names, but still. But okay, so they're pretty much just... You've increased the damage of the rogue. The rogue was pretty powerful to begin with as well, but you've seemed like you've increased the skill damage as well. And just lowered the cooldown, or added to the cooldowns of the imbuements. Sorcerer. Charge bolt damage was increased and the mana cost has been decreased. Charge bolt damage has increased. Decrease the damage of chain lightning and reduce its effectiveness against bosses. Yeah, chain lightning was fucking powerful. That was an absolutely massively powerful skill where you literally, all you had to do was stand in one place and just spam the shit out of that button. Decrease the cooldown of the Incinerate skill enhancement bonuses. Firewalls will now spawn underneath enemies more frequently when using its enhancement bonus. Increase the lucky hit chance for the Meteor skill enhancement bonus. So, I didn't really do much with the fire and Incinerate skills. I did more of chain lightning with when I did my sorcerer playthrough, and or just lightning in general. And I could definitely say chain lightning was a massive OP skill that you literally just had to just stand there, and it just did damage to everything around you. The addition of the added damage cost if the chain lightning bounced off you and then went back to the enemy was massive. Whenever we introduce changes to our classes with the goal of making them and their skills feel impactful and powerful. Your feedback has helped us uphold those ideals. Some players have adapted or adeptly noticed that certain skills were too powerful. One of our goals for skills is to have them be interesting and weird and interactive in terms of itemization and combat feel. We've made some changes to help in this regard, with one example being Necromancer minions. We made changes that made them more vulnerable in combat, which will make raising the dead a more active component to the Necromancer gameplay. Launch is just the first step in the class balance journey, and you can expect further updates that iterate the pillars of Diablo IV. So, my issue with this is, one, the Necromancer was extremely powerful, regardless of what you did, specifically with the minions that never died, and the corpse explosion that was the biggest OP that you've ever had in your life. Rogue was very powerful as well, with the increased attack speed and the amount of damage that increased attack speed did on multiple hits. Sorcerer, again, very, very powerful. I never play Sorcerer because I do feel that Sorcerer is pretty much very squishy. Like, you just get hit once and you're dead. The Sorcerer in Diablo IV was very, very powerful, and I found that, like I said, the Chain Lightning was an OP event. I'm happy that they've actually reduced the effectiveness against this. Druid, again, for me, I'm talking just on the point of view of my experience with Druid, and I've seen others too. It just didn't feel like it hit properly or hit hard. So whenever we did anything with a Druid, it just kind of felt that it took time for them to really get any type of impact in. And Barbarian, you're weakening the Barbarian by 10% as their main initial damage, but you're increasing their skill damage, which I see why you've negated that. But I don't understand the complaint here. Was the complaint the fact that they just felt very strong to begin with, and the skill passive trees that didn't feel like they didn't add anything to it? I don't understand the complaint here, but whatever. I'm not gonna get too far into that. If that's what they wanted to do. That's what they wanted to do. You know what I mean? I'm not if bang bing. It's how it is. So decent changes to the classes. However, I definitely feel that there's going to be a lot more changes coming up for balancing purposes, because there's, again, the Necromancer feels extremely OP. Even with you downgrading the Corpse Explosion skill and the damage that it deals, there were still many things in Necromancer that felt extremely powerful. Similar concept goes with Rogue, similar concept goes with the Sorcerer. I can't say the same with Druid, however, I saw some endgame, so the end version of the beta builds that actually were very, very good. And then Barbarian also, again, very powerful when you start building them up. But let's move on. UI. Fix an issue where the built-in screen reader was not reading key prompts, game options, details, and other UI texts. I don't think I had this issue, but this is not really a change in how the game plays. This is just an issue that obviously people had. Fix an issue where actions could not be bound to the mouse wheel. Fix an issue where evade couldn't be bound to the right analog stick on controller. Chat will now display on the left side of the screen when using the centered action bar configuration. A character's stats will be displayed by default when players click the materials and stat buttons within their inventory. Character stats will be displayed by default when players click the materials and stat buttons. Yeah, so that was one thing that I know some people had an issue with too, is that whenever you went to the materials and stat buttons, you had to like actually scroll to get to the character stats. Again, not really a big issue for me, but I know a lot of people were like you know, we don't want to have to scroll if we don't have to. The move and interact inputs can now be mapped to one button, while the primary attack input is mapped to the secondary button. Okay. The move and interact inputs can now be mapped, so we can move differently rather than... So I'm assuming, can we do the WASD? The sans serif font used in-game has been replaced with new serif font. Was this an issue? Did people not like the font that was used in-game? Okay. Encounters. Fix multiple issues that allowed bosses like the Butcher to become unresponsive. Okay, so we met the Butcher once. He's a piece of shit. The Butcher has been re-evaluated for difficulty and will present a greater challenge in World Tiers 3 and 4. Makes sense. That technically is like your two hardest tiers. Bosses such as Chort, Malnock, Vinard, in others were re-evaluated for melee character difficulty, resulting in changes to attacks and fight mechanics. Alright. Didn't really have any problems with these guys, like as I recall. Fix an issue where Vampire Brutes using the Shadow Enhance affix would chain cast Impale. So some of these, obviously, I don't really think I had problems with. I'm trying to remember. Was it Malnock? Was Malnock the large goat guy that you had to fight for the chieftain? I don't know if it was one of these guys, but he was a pain in the ass. Like, that was very much like if you were a melee fighting him, I could definitely understand why the biggest issue would have been like close range with him. Cellars. Increase the chance for a dungeon event to occur in a cellar. Cellars will now consistently reward a chest upon completion. That is something that I noticed. You would do a cellar and you'd say completed, but you get nothing for it. And then it kind of negated the concept of like, why am I doing this in the first place? Fix an issue where cellars would prematurely be marked as complete. Fix an issue where the guaranteed elite monster would be absent from the cellar. Yeah, I've had that too, where there's no elite monster at all. And general quality of life. Fix an issue where players could increase attack speed by move canceling attacks early. Really? Didn't realize that was a thing. I'm surprised they actually found that out. Fix an issue where characters weren't immune and untargetable after loading into an area. The reset dungeon button has been disabled. I don't understand. What was the reset button dungeon? Or reset dungeon button? I never used that. I don't understand what the purpose of it was. I don't know if you're resetting the dungeon and the affix that you got is now sent back. Like, do you have to do it again? Fix an issue that caused Gale Valley and Serric Rapture to have less monsters than intended until a campaign quest has been... Campaign quests in those territories were complete. Okay, I didn't read that right at all anyway. Tune into the next Diablo IV developer update live stream. So yeah, so April 20th is going to be the next live stream. I definitely do want to try to check that out live if possible. Because April 20th is when? That's on a Thursday. I may not be able to check it live, but definitely that's one that I definitely want to check out. But, you know, the changes seem okay. Like, I was anticipating a little bit more changes, to be honest with you, but I think for the time being, these guys don't want to go too ham or above any changes to the game. But so far, I think they've done a good job. Like the dungeon gameplay, okay, we'll see how this works when it comes to how the dungeons feel. The classes are okay. I don't know how effective the change is going to be. UI, not necessarily a big issue there. Encounters, never really had a big issue there. Sellers, yeah, they just felt there's no reason to do them. And general quality of life, fine. It is what it is, you know what I mean? But I am curious on it, but that's about it. That's the changes that they're going to be implementing as we head to June. Yes, there's going to be more balancing that's going to happen. Yes, maybe the first little bit in Diablo 4, we're going to have some issues left, right, and center, or some balancing issues, but I know a lot of people are going to complain about it. Instead of complaining, provide proper feedback to the developers, because this is pretty much how they learn what proper balancing is in their game. It's always is when it comes to an MMO style of game like this. When you have so many people playing it, there always has to be a certain balance in place that can only be perceived and received from the actual player base. So, and I know a lot of people are going to complain about it. That's just the end all be all of it. But that's about it. What did you enjoy in Diablo 4? Did you do the open betas? Did you find any of these issues that you had? If you did, let me know in the comment section below. If you did like the video, please do me a favor, leave a like the video and a sub to the channel, as it helps tremendously. Also, if you want to support on Patreon, follow Patreon right there, link in the description. But thank you again for watching, and from me to you, make sure to heal, please heal, and I will see you in Sanctuary.